guys, we gotta be honest with ourselves. Smartphones have been getting more and more expensive. But when you look at the feature upgrades and the performance, despite looking great on paper, in everyday usage, proves that it really hasn't been worth the price we are paying. We are paying premium dollars for only a small amount of improvement. And it's been happening for a couple of years, guys. Let's take it back to last year, 2019. Apple released their iPhone 11, and the base model sold for a record low of $699.99. That's $700 for a flagship iPhone. It's been a while since we've seen prices like that. That may have actually been the lowest they've ever launched a flagship at. Next to that phone was the iPhone 11 Pro model, and that bad boy launched for roughly $1,000 at its base level. And even though it was a great performing, beautiful, well-designed phone, it wasn't really worth $200 more than the iPhone 11. Granted, you got an extra camera and a better screen, but in reality, it didn't change much. The camera was very good on the 11, very good on the 11 Pro. The screen, you really wouldn't notice a difference unless you held those two side by side. Let's add to that. Shortly after that, Google released their pricey Pixel 4 and 4 XL. The base model started at $799. Hey, now it's a flagship, right? Well, kinda. It didn't have the latest processor. It had great performance, but it had a weak battery, and just every bit of its specs were kind of meh compared to the competition. But its price range, despite being cheaper than a lot of guys, still way too high for what you were getting. Even OnePlus. This year, OnePlus hit flagship level pricing for their 8 series. And yes, once again, it looks good on paper. It looks like an improvement. But when you compare it to last year's, you're not getting that much more. It went from 90 Hz to 120 Hz, but that's probably the biggest improvement that the everyday consumer is going to notice, if they even notice that. And Samsung, I hate to break it to you, Samsung Knights. I know you love your Samsungs. I love Samsung stuff too. But they've been kind of gouging us for prices for a long time. And this year, they took it a little too far with the Galaxy Note. Not the Ultra. I wouldn't pay the main price for the Ultra neither, but that's closer to its value than the base Note 20. You see, for $1,000, you got a 60 Hz screen with a 1080p resolution in a plastic body and non-expandable storage. I'm guessing we paid $1,000 for a neat little pen. It's crazy, right? But hey, once again, here we are, buying expensive phones, watching the prices rise, and not thinking about the performance and upgrades that are coming with those pricing. So here we are in a sea of expensive flagship phones that perform only a little bit better than the ones we paid $800, $700 for. Thankfully, when you fast forward to 2020, there's actually something good coming out of this year. I should probably knock on wood for saying that. Yeah. Let's take a first look at what Apple did. For the first time in a long time, Apple decided to release a mid-ranger. And not just a weaker version of their flagship phone, but a solid, 100% functional mid-ranger that actually has their latest and greatest A13 chip. That's fantastic. It has one of the best video cameras you can get, a lot of the same features from your latest iPhones, and you know what the best part is? This bad boy costs only $400. Makes me wonder what we're paying these big prices for on these flagships. And of course, I gotta give credit where credit's due. OnePlus. You see, OnePlus was one of the first brands to do their best to offer a flagship experience with a not so flagship price. Now, they took a couple of liberties with how they came up to this price point. They sacrificed certain things that when you think about it, we don't need in a phone. I mean, they just got wireless charging because let's face it, they had fast charging. You didn't really need a wireless charger if your phone charged from 0 to 100 in less than an hour. And they offered premium builds, okay cameras, but great performance. It was a mix of Samsung's higher end specs with Google's simplified operating system. They got a nice brand following. They make great phones. A lot of their phones are highly rated. And I think that OnePlus was probably the first phone to launch what I like to call the mid-range effect. So what I mean by this is nowadays we're seeing a shift in focus going to these mid-rangers. And not just giving you a cheap phone and shaving off the price point, but actually taking the time and care to figure out what makes a phone a great experience and shaving off all the unnecessary parts. Basically trimming the fat on these premium and flagship cell phones and giving us an amazing experience. Now, how did OnePlus cause this? Well, in my opinion, they started eating Samsung's lunch. You see, a lot of people love OnePlus because they offer higher end specs with lower cost. Samsung likes offering you higher end specs, but they're expensive if you want the flagship. Samsung is a smart company. They got their eyes on this. And then they probably noticed something else. Do you know what cell phones from Samsung have been their biggest sellers? Galaxy S series, the Note series, their foldables? None of those. It's their A series. It's their mid-rangers. These guys have been Samsung's biggest sellers. And Samsung, being smart, realized that. They hit a price point in almost every bracket, making sure that whatever customer wanted to find a phone and whatever their budget was, Samsung had a seat at the table. And then just recently, they made a big move. A move that I'm actually very excited for. They released their Samsung Galaxy S20 Fan Edition. And when you look at this phone compared to their flagships, you realize you're not missing much. You still get wireless charge, a 120Hz screen. Samsung's beautiful screens, by the way. It may not be their top of the line versions, but still beautiful. You get expandable storage, fast charging. Hell, you get everything that people care about in a cell phone. But they launched this guy at what, $699? And if you look at it now, if you look at it the day they announced it, you can get it for $599. I feel like this was Samsung saying sorry for the horrendous price of the Note 20. But it's not just Samsung. Google last year actually had their most successful Pixel be the 3A. It was their budget version of their flagship. And that's one everybody flocked to. And then this year, they doubled up on it. For $350, they released a Pixel 4A. Now, sadly, I haven't got my hands on it, but just looking at all the reviews and playing around with it in stores, that phone is a banger. And I mean, you're only paying $350 for a banger. It doesn't have any of the fancy stuff. Even with its weaker chipset, it performs extremely smoothly. You get an amazing camera, super compact in your hand. And say what you want about plastic builds, when it comes to dropping it, you don't really feel so terrified as when you drop premium glass. And you know what? Just a couple days ago, Google also announced the two newest phones in their lineup. The Google Pixel 4a 5G, a bigger 5G capable variant of the super popular 4a, and the Pixel 5. So, I expected this year to be the year I easily switched from Pixels. I've had the first one, the second one, and the fourth. I liked them all, but I was getting a little fed up. I really wasn't excited for what I heard about the 5, but when they released it, you know what? It's a solid device. A metal frame, ultra wide with, of course, Google's computational photography, water resistant, Great screen at 90 hertz. And it launches it for, once again, $699, kind of matching that Galaxy FE point. We now have flagship phones launching for $700, and it's Pixel, so you know it's going to go on sale. Just like you know the Samsung's going to go on sale. And we here in the US are supposedly going to get our own variant of the OnePlus Nord, which was another banger for around, what, 400, $500 or something like that? It's crazy. And it's not just that they're giving us these phones for lower price points, they are taking their time to look into what their customers want out of their devices. Google's making sure they give you a great software experience and a great camera. You know, two staples in the Google Pixel line. Apple was giving you a premium built phone. Even though it's a little more retro, it has bigger bezels than I like to admit. It's glass back, wireless charge. It feels great. It is Apple's finest for $400. Samsung with their FE edition. I don't know if you ever felt the A50 series, but it's very much plastic. I felt the fan edition. It doesn't feel as cheap as this. It doesn't feel like glass, but it feels premium. So you're getting Samsung's premium build with an amazing screen, good cameras, and high refresh rate with a buttload of storage and surprisingly less RAM than a Pixel phone for the first time in forever. This is showing that these phone manufacturers are listening. And I think, OnePlus helped them see the light. That we are out of the phase where we need the latest and greatest processor to have a great phone. We are now able to have something as good as the 765G chipset offer an amazing experience for a lower cost. This is something I'm super excited for. We still get these high refresh rates. We still get these camera features like 4K 60, but we're not getting these super high pricing. So now, even if our phone isn't that much faster than our last one, it's a little bit better because we're not paying this much more money. And I think the big guys, the phone carriers, are finally seeing that. And this is something I've been hoping for and wanting for the longest time. And I think it's something that we right now, in these times, in this mess that is 2020, this is something we need. And I really do hope that us tech reviewers, as well as other tech enthusiasts, kind of see that the latest and greatest flagship or 12 gigs of RAM isn't what's important. The software experience, the value, just how it feels in our hand. All these things are what makes a phone. OnePlus learned it quick. Apple took a dive and nailed it. Google is starting to finally see the light. And Samsung, well, they kind of get it, but they're playing the smart game. Like I said, they have a phone in every price bracket. So no matter what you need, they're right there. This has been something that I think is amazing, super smart, and super interesting. I, for one, am excited for it. How about you guys? What phones are you excited for? And what other phones would you like to see a fan edition version of or a A-series edition of? What do you hope Apple does with their newest iPhone SE edition? So drop some comments, like, subscribe, and once again, this is EDT, Everyday Tech with StanJB, and I'm signing off. Peace.